Hey y'all, so today what we're gonna do is learn how to install Kali Purple onto VirtualBox VM. The end result once we finish this tutorial is we'll have Kali Purple set up on our virtual machine, and what the great thing about Kali Purple is it focuses on the NIST CSF. So we got the identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Once we get the Kali VM set up, we're also gonna create a OpenCTI instance. And so this is gonna look somewhat like this. Once we get OpenCTI set up, we're gonna set up some data ingestion from different sources. So if we look at these connectors here, we're going to look into getting the CISA, known exploited vulnerabilities, MITRE Atlas, MITRE datasets, the OpenCTI datasets. And yeah, so let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing you want to do before we install Kali is you need to install the Oracle VirtualBox. I'm going to leave a link to the Oracle VirtualBox in the description. But yeah, once you get there, you just click this download and then it will install onto your computer. Next, what you want to do is go to the Get Kali URL, which I will also provide in the description. And once we're here, you can go to Installer Images. And the first one is obviously going to be the original Kali Linux. And right below it, we're going to have the Kali Purple. So go here and then click on this download button. You should get Kali in Purple should start installing onto your computer. Good question is, why would you want to install Kali Purple instead of Kali Linux? Supposedly Kali Purple is supposed to be a little bit easier to install, but it's also based on the NIST cybersecurity framework. So the foundations for NIST, which is identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And these are kind of the foundational steps organizations would use to identify security vulnerabilities, and then the steps we would use to protect, detect, and then how do we respond? And if everything goes haywire, how do we recover from those disasters, right? This article goes over that, and this picture here gives a good idea of the differences between Kali Linux and Kali Purple. Basically, Kali Purple is supposed to be some sort of sock in the box, and it's a good way for you to practice cybersecurity, purple, blue team kind of things. Yeah. Also, Kali Purple is only available as ISO, where with Kali Linux, you have the live boot capability and a few other features. There are less features in Kali Purple, but yeah, it's mostly focused on the NIST CSF. So if you want to follow along after the install, I'm going to be doing this step right here with identify, and we're going to install OpenCTI. I'm going to provide a link to this wiki here, and it kind of goes over some of the things you can do with Kali Purple and different ways you can set it up. If we look here, there's different flavors of Kali that they're going to set up. The one we're going to do is the Kali Violet, and we're going to add the OpenCTI here. So yeah, I'm going to be going through this document. So once you got the Kali Purple ISO installed on your computer, what you want to do is open up VirtualBox, and then we're going to click on this new option, and I'm going to name it Kali Purple Demo. We're going to put it in the default folder and find the ISO image. Let me see here. So I'm going to click on this other. I'm going to find that Kali image that I installed. So Kali image ISO, select that, and we're just going to go ahead and click next. This part is pretty important here. So if you want to follow along with this guide here where we eventually install the OpenCTI, you're going to want to add some specs during the virtual machine setup. So initially I'm going to set the base memory to 8192, and then the amount of processors I'm going to set that to 4 processors. You might want to set it to more if you can. The next thing we want to do is set the amount of gigabytes to 128 gigabytes because it's going to be using a lot of memory. Go ahead and click next and then finish that. So it should be initially set up. What I like to do here is go into the settings, and then in the advanced section, for share clipboard, I do bidirectional, and the drag and drop set it to bidirectional as well. Once you have that, go ahead and click the start button. This will start powering up the virtual machine. And we're going to select the graphical install option here. All right, so once you get to the graphical install, go ahead and select your presets for your language, your country, the type of keyboard you're using. It's going to go ahead and get those set up for us. All right. Okay, so for this, I'm just going to set this to Kali Violet. Violet. Continue. Domain name, we can leave that blank if we want. And then the username, you can set it to what you want. For demo purposes, I'm just going to keep it simple. L. Username for your account, L, and then the password. Just going to keep it super simple. The time, you can set it to whatever time you like. And now it's going to go ahead and get that set up for us. We're going to use the entire disk since it's a virtual machine. Continue. We're going to do all files in one partition. And do finish partitioning and write changes to disk. And write changes to disk, yes. All right, so this part is going to take a while. And what I'd recommend doing here is if it gets stuck, you just need to close out the virtual machine and restart again from the beginning. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen sometimes. Anyways, let's go ahead and wait for this install to finish. Okay, so here we can see some of the NIST CSF options, and you can select which ones you would like to have on this computer. I'm just going to select all of them and go ahead and continue. All right, so usually here with this Plymouth, you might get stuck. We'll see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't get stuck here. All right, almost there. Come on, we can do it. Okay, so this one, you should be able to say yes. Don't worry about what it says here because you're on a virtual machine, so we can go ahead and continue. And then we want to select this dev SDA or whatever you have below here. Okay. Okay, so installation is complete. Let's go ahead and click continue. It should reboot the computer. All right, let's go ahead and go into Kali. Nice. So once Kali's up, you should be able to use that username and password you created earlier during the setup. So let's go ahead and log in. Nice. Okay, so looks like we're in. So I'm going to select scaled mode here. And yeah, now we have Kali installed. All right, so the first half of this tutorial is done, and if you're not interested in creating OpenCTI, you could finish here, and you can start exploring. So if we look here, we can see the different NIST CSF foundations. So identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. And if you were to compare this with what's on Kali Linux, you can see there's kind of a lot less tools here. But yeah, this is more about defense. All right, so let's go ahead and get OpenCTI installation going. And what I like to do is I like to follow the wiki they have on Kali Purple. So I'm just gonna open up this Firefox screen here and I'm gonna paste this doc so we can follow along. You can ignore all this stuff because we already installed it on our VM. But what we wanna do is run these commands here. So I'm gonna do that right now. I'm gonna open up our terminal and we're gonna start running a few commands. The first one is gonna be sudo apt update. And we're gonna install curl. Continue, yes. And the next thing we're gonna do is add Docker. And with OpenCTI, we're gonna be using Docker with Portainer to get it installed. All right, and the next step is we're gonna do sudo system control enable Docker. We're going to set that user we created to allow them to use Docker here. And we're also going to modify the permissions of the Docker SOC. Okay. Now we're gonna create the Portainer instance here. So I'm gonna use this command, docker volume create Portainer data. And we are going to run and create Portainer. So once that's finished, we can check to see if Portainer is running. So we can run this docker ps, and if you see that 9943, that means we got Portainer running. So if I go into my browser here and go into localhost 9443, we need to do a HTTPS connection here. All right, HTTPS localhost 9443. And we're gonna go ahead and accept the risk. Continue. So once you get logged in, it's gonna ask you to create a password. I'm just gonna create a simple password, admin 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Once again, admin 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Go ahead and create the user. Don't save that. Now, once you're logged into Portainer, we want to get started with Docker. And we got a live connect here. So I'm going to click on that. So if we look on the side here, there's a few options, dashboard, app templates, and then there's stacks here. So we want to click on the stack, and then we want to click on the add stack. We want to do the web editor, and we're going to click, name it OpenCTI. All right. All right, so you want to make sure you have the web editor selected, and what I'm going to do is go down into here. We want to make the OpenCTI directory. So let's go back to our terminal, and then we're going to run this command, sudo make directory opt OpenCTI, and then we're going to go into that directory. Okay. And then I'm just going to copy what they have in here. You don't want to copy all of this. You just want to copy this first half. And so what we're going to be doing is creating the environments file. So go back to my terminal and then paste that in. So what this is doing is we're creating the the OpenCTI admin login, and we want to change this base URL to our local host. So I'm going to do HTTP localhost 8080. The password is changed me. You probably want to change that if you're doing this on a server that you're going to deploy. So I'll go ahead and click enter. That should have created our environment file. And you can see there's a bunch of connectors here, default connectors. So we want to keep those in mind. We're going to modify this file here, modify the permission. So modify that, and then we're going to read that file, see what output we got. So sudo cat env, and basically what it did was it's creating a bunch of random UUIDs and it's posting it to this file. We're going to be using these UUIDs a lot, but what you need to do is grab this information here. So we're going to copy it, and then we're going to go back to Portainer. In this web editor, we need to first add the blob master first. So I'm gonna get that link for that real quick. So OpenCTI has their own GitHub page, and in here, you want to grab this Docker Compose YAML. I'm going to click on this raw part, get all that, and then we're going to paste it in here. And you can see there's these connector import IDs, and that's all going to be hooked up through these environment variables that we set up. So I'm going to make sure I copy this, and then let's make sure we're reading through this, got everything we need. So this is the connector for importing files. Okay, looks good, looks good. OpenCTI, and the website's going to be available on port 8080. Just want to make sure, and then the admin email, the admin password that we created in the environments file, the token that we also created in the environments file. It's RabbitMQ. There's Elasticsearch and Redis database as well. Okay, so that looks good, I think. Let me just validate if there's anything I'm missing. Nope, looks good. Okay. So before you deploy this, you want to add some environment variables. So in here we have those environment variables. I'm going to go into advanced mode and take this from your terminal, grab these variables from your terminal, copy them, and then paste them into here. Okay. So all these UUIDs we're going to be using with our OpenCTI instance. And for demo purposes, I'm just going to enable access to everybody. So I'll go ahead and deploy this stack here. All right, so this part is where it gets a little tricky. This deployment's going to take a while. And at first, it might not seem like OpenCTI is working, but trust me, you just got to give it some time and eventually it will start booting up. It just takes a little bit, and there's other containers that OpenCTI will depend on. So we got to wait for all those to set up, and then we also got to wait for the connections to be established. I'm going to show you some tricks that we can use to just troubleshoot it if you have any issues. But yeah, let's go ahead and wait for this deployment to finish. All right, so it looks like the stack was successfully deployed. It's kind of misleading. Let me try and see if we can get to OpenCTI. So if we look here, these are all the containers that were deployed with that setup. And here, the OpenCTI 1 is the one we want to look at. And if we scroll all the way to the side here, we can see this 8080. If I click on this, it'll open up a new tab, and we can see there was a connection issue. Don't worry though, you just got to give it some time and it should start making a connection. If you want to look at the logs, if you scroll back and you click on this little file icon, we can see what kind of issues it's having. So search engine seems down. It'll do that for a while. You just got to give it a couple minutes. Eventually it'll start coming back up. But yeah, so I'll give it a little bit of time and then we'll go back and we'll check. All right, so looks like the deployment was successful. We get this login page and you can test it out to see if it works. So if you go back to this OpenCTI container, click on it, you can see the different properties you set. So let's get that admin email going here, and then let's get that password. Obviously you want to change the password to not that. And let's sign in. Don't save. All right. So this is basically OpenCTI. Yeah, it's working, but there's no data, right? So the next thing we want to do is add some connectors here. So if I look in this database icon, and if we go to ingestion and connectors, we'll see that those file imports and exports were added, but now we need to add our own connectors. So let's go ahead and look into that. So I'm going to be providing the link for this GitHub, but OpenCTI platform, they have a lot of external imports, and this is what we're going to be using for the connectors. So there's a lot of them. A few popular ones is the Alien Vault. Apparently at the time of this video, I couldn't get that working, but it would be cool. There's still some other good ones like the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities, and also the MITRE. Where is it? MITRE, Atlas, and the MITRE. And you can also install a few other ones. If you look at this page, this is the ecosystem where they have a bunch of other plugins. But basically those connectors that we all saw on that GitHub page, these are all the connectors they have available. Most of these connectors, you kind of need like some type of subscription to get data from them. So we're just going to use the free ones. If we go to community, we should see some free ones. So we got this one, and we also got a few others. Like this SSL blacklist we could install, but I'm just gonna do MITRE and the CISA. In order to get these connectors set up, we need to Dockerize them. So you want to go back to Portainer, click on your stacks, click on the OpenCTI, and then go to this editor here and scroll all the way down to the bottom. I'm going to bring back that Docker page we saw for the external connectors, and also add this in the description. But these are the connectors we want to use, and the first one I'm going to connect is the OpenCTI one itself. So we'll click on this OpenCTI, go to this Docker Compose, and these are basically all the configurations you need. So the OpenCTI URL, the OpenCTI token which we have created, and we're going to also have to make our own connector ID. So I'm going to grab this and copy it. We're going to go back to Portainer, and right above the volumes, we're going to paste that in, OpenCTI connector. If you scroll up, you can see we got that OpenCTI URL, so copy that and replace this right here. And then the token, we have that admin token, so we can just grab this as well. But one thing we do, we need to make our own connector ID, a separate connector ID. There's a few ways you can do this. You can grab it from a website that makes these unique IDs, or we can just use Kali itself. And that's what I'm going to do. So let's get that added. You have to execute a few commands. So the first one, let's go into the terminal. Let's create the Kali connector, the OpenCTI connector. So I'm going to grab this code here, paste it. So sudo bash C, and then we're going to cat into that environment file, and we're creating a new connector, OpenCTI ID, and we're going to create a random UUID here. So I'm going to go ahead and click enter, and now we want to get that value. So sudo grep connector OpenCTI ID in the environment file. So yep, that looks good. You can also run the sudo cat environment command to see all the connectors you have. So I'm just going to grab this value, copy the selection, And now we want to scroll down to the environment variables. And I'm just going to add a new environment variable here. So that connector ID, and then the value right here. Move that equal sign. Make sure we're good on that. Okay, looks good. Okay. And then we want to add that connector ID into that YAML, the Docker Compose. So I'll go here, connector OpenCTI ID, and then now we should be able to update the stack. Don't think we have to do a redeploy, but let's go ahead and update it. That'll get the deployment in process. And what that should do is it will create a few variables for us for like states and countries. And you can actually see if I go into OpenCTI, we go down to this database and we go to ingestion. If we look at the connectors, we should see the OpenCTI data set right here. And we can see it's actually getting data added in, which is great. Now let's go ahead and add some other connectors as well. So let's go look back in this external import connector. And the next one I want to add is the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities. So if you go here, you can read up about it. But what we want to do is go to this Docker Compose, and we want to grab this. There was one thing I forgot to do. So if we go back to this editor, we want to make sure these new containers depend on OpenCTI. So you want to grab this depends on and make sure you put it below each of these connectors here. And also just make sure everything's aligned, OpenCTI. So we need that OpenCTI URL right here. We also want that admin token that we created from earlier. So grab that. And then we need a separate connector ID. So we can't use the same connector ID. I'm going to go ahead and run those commands again to create a new connector ID. So if I scroll up, go back to that sudo bash, and we're going to do CISA known ID, and go ahead and enter. And then we want to find it. I'm just going to do a cat all just to grab it real quick. Let's get this whole variable. Copy the selection, and we're going to add it into here as an environment variable. Okay, looks good. And I'm just going to run the update stack. And then let's go ahead and add the other connectors here. So let's look. Let's get the MITRE Atlas. Go into Docker Compose, grab this MITRE Atlas, copy it, go back to Portainer editor, scroll down. Paste that in. Whoops. Deleted something. There we go. Connector, MITRE Atlas. We want to make sure we get these variables here. Same as the others. But the connector ID definitely needs to be different. So I'm going to go back to the terminal. We're going to make another ID, MITRE Atlas. Okay. And we're gonna grep it. Or no, we're just gonna do a cat. Grab it all. So copy that selection. And we're gonna paste it in here. Control X. So you might want to do it one at a time. I'm going to do the other MITRE, but it might be a good idea to do it one at a time because if it tries to import a bunch of data at once, it kind of slows down your computer, or it slows down the VM. So I'm going to get this MITRE one, and we're going to go to the Docker Compose, and we're going to get that connector for MITRE. Copy this, go up, and let's paste that in here. We also want to make sure it depends on OpenCTI. So I will make sure OpenCTI is available before we try and do anything crazy. Okay, so let's grab these variables here. They should be the same. And then the connector ID. So I need to change this connector ID here as well. So let me grab that real quick. MITRE Atlas ID. Don't miss these steps because none of your data will load in and you might be wondering why. But you can check the logs to see what's happening. Usually it's because of these connector IDs. All right, and then let's make a connector ID for MITRE as well. So same steps again. Connector. Enter. And then we're gonna cat to get that info. Copy that and add it into our environment variables. Control X, boom. All right, so we should be good to go here, but I'm just gonna look and validate that we're all good here. Everything is looking good. Oh, nope. Missed this part again. And that ID was this guy here. Yeah, each one needs a separate ID or else it's not gonna work. Okay. OpenCTI. All right. Looks good. So let's go ahead and update the stack. Okay, so it's telling me that the stack is successfully running. If you go back to stacks, let's click on stacks and then OpenCTI. If we look at the containers, we can see there's new containers added. So there's the CISA known vulnerabilities. We also got the MITRE and we got the Atlas. If I go to the browser again and we look at the ingestion tool and go to connectors, we'll see that, yes, we're getting connections from the known vulnerabilities. We got stuff from MITRE Atlas and the MITRE data sets. If I click on here, we can see it's adding information in, and that's pretty awesome. And if we go here, still no data yet. It might take some time, but eventually what you'll see is some data start getting added. But yeah, once all the data is added in, you should be able to get some pretty cool information like active threats and different APTs or hacker groups. So like APT 29. One that I find interesting is the Wizard Spider group. We can also look at these. You can create different threats. So if you wanted to make a threat actor, maybe you're interested in different hackers, you could like track those hackers and put them in here. And then we can also look at malware. So one malware that I found interesting created by Wizard Spider was the Ryuk ransomware. And yeah, you can get information about it. It's pretty cool. But yeah, anyways, I hope you liked the tutorial, and if you'd like to learn more or want to see me install more Kali stuff, let me know. I could also go over how to set up GVM, but if you want, you can also follow this wiki, and I'll post it in the article in the description, and you can just follow that. But yeah, GVM is also pretty good. It can scan vulnerabilities on your computer. It's pretty useful. Anyways, thank you for watching. Oh yeah, one other thing is if we wanted to compare Kali, so if we look here and see the tools, obviously there's a lot in Identify and all these other tools here. But if we pull up a Kali Linux instance, we can see there's definitely a lot more fun you can have on Kali Linux. So yeah. Anyways, if you like this video and you want to see me do more, please like and subscribe.